Hello! Welcome to our Dead Rising documentary, which we like to do when we wrap up a playthrough, as we recently did. It was a lot of fun playing through Dead Rising again, although frustrating at times, but still, here we are. So, let's talk about Dead Rising. Dead Rising is a 2006 game which was originally exclusive to the Xbox 360. The main character is freelance photographer Frank West, who has received a tip about some bizarre happenings in a sleepy Colorado town, so he flies there in a private helicopter, only to discover that the town is being overrun by zombies, and he is now trapped in the local mall. So Frank has to avoid being eaten by zombies, save survivors from same, battle other survivors who have snapped under the stress of all this, uncover the terrorist plot which caused the zombie outbreak, and expose the government cover-up which inspired the terrorist plot. Oh, and get the girl. This is a fun game where the hook is that you can use almost anything in the mall as a weapon to kill a zombie, but that's just to draw you in. This is actually a very intricate and well-paced story with lots of interesting characters. It's very cinematic in presentation, and whether you approach the game as like a first-person movie that you can explore, or you're just having zombie chopping fun, the game works on both those levels. So, let's look at how the game came together. Dead Rising was published by Capcom. The producer of the game, Keiji Inafune, has a 30-plus year pedigree in the gaming industry. He started as a graphic designer at Capcom when he was just 22, where his first projects were the original Street Fighter and Mega Man. He worked on a majority of the Mega Man and Mega Man X games in that and various other capacities. Mega Man 8 was the first one that he was listed as producer on. Dead Rising actually started as a sequel to Shadow of Rome. Inafune quote, "We knew we wanted to make a game for the Western market, but we wanted to make something different. So the people that were working on Shadow of Rome 2 ended up making Dead Rising." Capcom management was hesitant to greenlight a big money project for a console for the 360, which was new at that time. Inafune campaigned for the project to the suits. In an interview with Wired, he recounts, "As a game creator, if you can't convince them to take those kind of risks, you'll never be able to make any good games. I think part of making games, part of being a game creator, is convincing the right people that what you're doing is going to succeed and make the company money. Plus, now I can use this to my advantage. Like, see? You can trust me. I know what I'm talking about here." So the project moved forward. Inafune acknowledged the influence of the film Dawn of the Dead on Dead Rising, but he claims that he initially wanted to make a zombie game because of what he saw in Resident Evil 4. He said in an interview that he took notice that the zombies could run when he saw the game in development. Inafune asked Shinji Mikami, the developer behind Resident Evil series, "Why are the zombies running? If I made my own, they wouldn't be zombies like this," he remembers thinking to himself. Still, the mall setting and the human versus human element in the middle of a zombie apocalypse definitely seem to be plot points from Dawn of the Dead. So much so that the trademark owner of both the 1978 Dawn of the Dead and the 2004 remake, the MKR Group, sent letters to Capcom, Microsoft, and Best Buy, claiming that Dead Rising infringed on the copyrights and trademarks of those films. In a complaint filed in 2008 to seek an injunction that would preemptively counter an anticipated complaint like that from MKR, Capcom asserted that, quote, "Humans battling zombies in a shopping mall is a wholly unprotectable idea under today's copyright laws," end quote. Capcom further pointed out that they have a warning label on the box cover as a preemptive measure intended to separate the game from those films to avoid any customer confusion. The MKR Group subsequently did file a lawsuit in February of 2008 after failing to reach an agreement with Capcom over the dispute. The lawsuit failed to get an injunction and ultimately was dismissed in 2008. As I discussed in my previous video about zombies in cinema, linked in the description if you want to check it out, George Romero himself makes no money off Night of the Living Dead. They failed to register the copyright, and the movie slipped into public domain many years ago. And apparently, if MKR owns it, he doesn't have direct control over the rights to Dawn of the Dead either, it would appear. Interestingly enough, when asked at a horror movie convention about MKR failing to win the lawsuit against Dead Rising and Capcom, Romero didn't even know the game existed. He was a good sport about it, though. He even signed some copies of the game for fans at the event. Inafune worked on the game with director Yoshinori Kawano, also a veteran of many Mega Man projects, and Shigeru Kato, lead programmer of Onimusha 3, among other various artists and programmers on the project. For Frank West's voice and look, they picked TJ Rotolo, a stuntman in many A pictures like The Hunted, Scorpion King, Master and Commander of the World, as well as dozens of episodes of the 90s TV hit show The Power Rangers. He has over 200 credits in games and film to date. Inafune said they didn't want Frank to be, quote, your specific anime, nubile, 18-year-old Japanese character. We wanted to make a more rough, tough, gritty character for the Western market, and we initially designed this out of Japan, so there was a lot of learning to go through. Like in the beginning, some of the directive I gave was, make Frank ugly, make him fat. We wanted to make him not super attractive as a character, end quote. The rugged aspect seems to be part of the direction that the artists emphasized, but not the ugliness. For Isabella, they settled on Kim My-Guest, also known for her speaking roles in Metal Gear Solid, Mass Effect, and Dead Island. Supporting roles were filled out by resident voice talent from Alex Fernandez, TJ Storm, Laura Napoli, among others. Dead Rising garnered a great deal of critical acclaim. IGN awarded the game Most Innovative Design for Xbox 360 in its Best of 2006 awards. It won GameSpot's Best and Worst of 2006 awards in the category of Best Action Adventure Game, Best Sound Effects, and Best Use of Xbox 360 Achievement Points. Dead Rising was the 2006 Spike TV Video Game Awards Game of the Year, and X-Play also awarded it Best Original Game of 2006. Metacritic lists the game as 85 out of 100 on its critical aggregation scale. First, I must confess, I love this game. It's actually the reason I bought an Xbox 360. I found the cover art so intriguing due to my being such a rabid fan of zombies. But beyond the fun of shredding zombies, the story and the characters really won me over, and the challenge of saving the survivors and collecting the achievements made the replay value of this one high for me. I'd give it a 9 out of 10. Not a 10 out of 10 only because I hated how mind-numbing Infinity Mode was. It's actually the only reason I have 47 out of 50 achievements. I just could not play it, could not get into it. And the AI makes saving survivors in places extremely frustrating. So that's my fan take. But on the other side of the coin, the game is not without its faults, which we should also touch on. For one thing, the AI I mentioned earlier makes the game very challenging, as does the fact that you are timed and probably can't do all the cases the first time through. This is a good point for me in that most games are too easy now, but also a knock in that sometimes it's a little too hard and frustrating. Each subsequent game in the series got much easier, to the point that in Part 4 you can basically autopilot through the game and never die. I would prefer a challenging experience to that, but not one that has me throwing the controller out the window. As the graphics and somewhat wonky controls have not aged wonderfully, there are also cultural points that are a bit cringy. I commented on some of these in the playthrough I posted. For example, the Kent case, where you have to take a pink photo worth 700 or better. Making a game mechanic out of taking upskirt shots is really not a good look for Frank. Many of the women in the game are also very tropey, some to the point of being one-dimensional like Cheryl. These elements don't ruin the game for me, but I'm glad that they've tapered off in the sequels. Even Part 2, which came out just a few years later, was much better on this point. Fun facts about Dead Rising. The store, Jill's Sandwiches, is referenced to the scene in the original PlayStation Resident Evil, when Jill narrowly avoids being crushed by a trap and Barry says, "That was too close, you were almost a Jill sandwich." Similarly, the restaurant's Chris's Fine Foods is also a direct homage to Chris Redfield from Resident Evil. The voice of Adam the Clown was the only famous celebrity that I recognized when I did my research for this. He's actually by John Kassir, who was the voice of the original Crypt Keeper for the HBO series. Crislip's grocery store is named after the translator, David Crislip, for the English language version of the game. In-game, there are various references to the Mega Man series. Frank can wear a full Mega Man outfit and can even outluck the Mega Blaster. Also, there is a Mega Man film being advertised outside the movie theater. By the way, why we got a Sonic the Hedgehog movie before a Mega Man movie, I'll never understand that. Although I'm glad I don't have to see whatever terrible take Jim Carrey would have done on Dr. Wily. That sounds like it would have been horrible. The game is reputed to have been banned in Germany for its gore and violence, but actually what happened was that their ratings board refused to rate it for those reasons. The game was still released, just unrated. The game's soundtrack was released, and it comes in with over 40 tracks, which includes all the background music from the stores in the mall, as well as the metal and hardcore tracks from American bands which play during the boss fights. But it doesn't include the coolest track in the game, Gone Guru by Lifeseeker, which plays in the courtyard when you fight the convicts. You gotta get that one on YouTube if you want it. So that's Dead Rising. Hope you enjoyed, I certainly did. Can't wait to play part 2 again, because that was by far the best in the series. I may make a documentary about the later entries as well.